The story of Final Fantasy XIV, Episode 7, Operation Archon. Explora has come a long way since arriving in Eorzea. She joined the Adventurers Guild, made a name for herself in Ul'dah and became a diplomatic envoy, saved a large number of people from various threats, including a couple primals, and became a prominent member of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. Her story hasn't been entirely pleasant, though, as the workings of the Garlean Empire and the mysterious Ascians have continued to produce obstacles, notably the decimation of the Scions and the kidnapping of multiple members. Thanks to the help of Alphino and the Master Engineer, Cid, she finally managed to confront the Wind Primal, Garuda, but it ended up being one of the Garleans that defeated it, utilizing a terrifying construct known as the Ultima Weapon. This weapon was created by a long-lost civilization for the specific purpose of devouring primals and absorbing their energy. And even though it could function as a useful deterrent, the Garleans plan to use it to subjugate all of Eorzea. The time has come to rescue the captured Scions and formulate a plan to put a stop to this once and for all. Explora, Cid, and Alphino return to the Scions' headquarters, the Waking Sands, finding Ida inside. She is glad to see them and says that Y'shtola was here before, but went to Ul'dah to speak with a man who might know where the others are located. Alphino surmises that Minfilia was taken on Gaius Van Baelzar's orders, as he hopes to learn more about the Echo, the power granted by Hydaelyn that provides protection from the primals. The group decides to wait for Y'shtola, and while waiting, Explora experiences another vision of Hydaelyn, during which she tells her to be wary of the Ascian La Habrea, and that the crystals will be her salvation.
Hearken unto me now, for the darkness doth begin to spread. Wear thee the bearer of the crimson brand, for he is the avatar of shadow, whom death attendeth always. The crystals shall be thy salvation, thy blade and shield both. Steel thyself, for at the appointed hour thou shalt stare into the heart of darkness. Go with caution, my child, but fear not, for I am ever with thee.
It's not much to go on, but at least Hydaelyn is on their side. Y'shtola arrives, informing them that Minfilia and the other Scions have been taken to an Imperial stronghold in the Mordona region, known as Castrum Sentry. Obviously, rescuing some prisoners from an Imperial fort wouldn't be easy on the best day, let alone such high-value prisoners as these. Mordona was the site of a massive battle a number of years ago, when Garlemald attempted to invade Eorzea and were beaten back by a host of dragons. The battle left the region as quite the wasteland, only to be later made even worse from the calamity. Before heading into the region, Explora and the group travel back to Kurthos to speak with Lord Portalain of House Durandare, whom Explora had helped out previously. Portalain can fortunately confirm that his scouts observed 4 prisoners being led into Castrum Sentry, a Huron woman, an Elizan man, and 2 Lalafels, thus being Minfilia, Urianger, Papalymo, and Tataru. He also informs them that an Imperial airship recently made an emergency landing in Kurthos, and 2 prisoners were seen fleeing the craft, a Rogadin and a Lalafel. Cid firmly believes these individuals to be Biggs and Wedge, 2 engineers that work for him. The group decides that they can afford a bit more time to rescue the other Scions, as they're not likely to be executed just yet, while Biggs and Wedge might not be so lucky. Explora is pointed in the direction of where the airship landed, eventually coming across some footprints in the snow, one large and one small. She follows the footprints across the icy region, which lead underneath a stone bridge, where she finds Wedge shivering in the cold. It seems that Biggs had ran off in a different direction to lead the Imperial troops away from Wedge. Wedge is especially glad to hear that Cid is alive and well, and the group reconvenes at a nearby Ishgardian tower. With Wedge safe and sound, Explora continues her search for Biggs, eventually finding him surrounded by Imperial soldiers. She rushes in to help, joined by Ishtola and Ida, and after dealing with the Imperial contingent, they take him back to the tower to reunite with Wedge and Cid. Biggs and Wedge explain that they were captured along with the others during the Imperial raid on the Scion's headquarters. They were all taken to Castrum Sentry, but the two of them were held separately from the others. They were held in isolation for weeks before being suddenly sent aboard a ship bound for Garlemald. While in the air, they sabotaged the ship's altitude control, forcing an emergency landing and a chance to escape. With all of them reunited, they can begin formulating a plan to rescue the others, so they head over to Revenant's Toll, a settlement in Mordona. Once there, they learn from a local named Slothborn that Castrum Sentry has been on high alert as of late, and it would be especially difficult to sneak in. Cid comes up with the idea of impersonating Imperial soldiers in order to walk in the front gate, a bold plan which will require some Imperial uniforms and a suit of Magitech armor. Explora speaks with another individual who has a grudge against the Empire, and he tells her of a pipe that is connected to the command tower where she could eavesdrop on some of the comings and goings of the fort in order to determine if the others are even still there. After wading through a swamp and sitting next to a sewage pipe for a while, she can confirm that they're still there. Back at Revenant's Toll, Cid says that to move forward with the plan, they'll need to capture one of the Empire's Magitech armor, but in order to prevent them discovering its disappearance, he's working on a communications jamming device. Imperial forces communicate over distances by using electromagnetic waves, and since there's a cluster of corrupted crystals nearby that amplifies the same energy that they use, they can use the crystals to drown out the Imperial's communications. Explora is tasked with heading over to the crystals and using a device to take some readings, which is simple enough. That being done, her next task is a bit more bizarre, as she apparently needs to learn the Imperial salute that all of the soldiers use. That makes sense, but rather than the locals just showing her, she's told to head near the castrum in order to observe it being done directly. After trekking across Mordona, she does just that, and returns back with her new knowledge. Now, she needs to gather the Imperial uniforms that they'll be wearing in order to walk into the fort. She's told that there are people who sell these uniforms, but it's probably not the best idea to trust them with any sort of secretive knowledge. Instead, she's tasked with killing some Imperial patrols and simply taking the uniforms off their corpses. She heads back near the castrum and slaughters a handful of them, gathering up 3 sets of uniforms, one for herself, Biggs, and Wedge. Unfortunately, the problem with this method is that the uniforms have all been damaged in the process, making them a little suspicious. She takes them to a blacksmith who can be trusted, however, and he promptly repairs them, at least superficially. The time has come then to steal a Magitech armor from a patrol, with the plan being fairly simple. Approach a patrol while wearing the uniforms and lead them away into an isolated area. The plan is bolstered by the use of an Imperial smoke signal, adding a convincing touch to the ruse. The plan goes off without a hitch, as the Imperials rush in to investigate the smoke signal, and Explora promptly ambushes them, aided by Cid. Unfortunately, just as with their uniforms, the battle did a bit of damage to the Magitech armor, and it seems that it has a faulty servo mechanism. Biggs and Wedge take it back for repairs, discovering that the fragile Magitech core, which drives the servo mechanism, has been completely worn down. To replace it, rather than smashing some more patrols, Wedge has Explora fetch a mammoth heart, a component that can apparently grant sentience to an automaton. Explora rushes over to the Goldsmith's Guild in Ul'dah to grab one, learning that she won't have to pay the exorbitant price for it since Alfino notified them that his servant will be picking it up. Alphino has apparently been a benefactor of the guild for a number of years, so they wouldn't dream of charging him. Back in Revenant's Toll, they slot in the heart, and sure enough, the armor fires up just fine, except the servo mechanism doesn't seem to be responding as well as it should. Wedge deduces that since now they've given the mechanism sentience, it doesn't feel comfortable enough to operate properly. This changes after another Imperial patrol arrives to reclaim the armor, and the group fends them off. With all of that out of the way, they're finally ready to break into the castrum and rescue the other Scions. Strapping on their Imperial uniforms, Explora, Biggs, and Wedge approach the fort pretending to be returning from a patrol, while Sid and Alphino set off a distraction nearby. The first part of the plan goes off just fine, and the three make it inside. They quickly learn that the others are being held in a storage tower, and they manage to talk their way into getting the key to get in. Inside, they find their captured friends, and proceed to put down the Imperial guards before freeing them all. Glad to be rescued, Papalymo points out that no one knows where Thancred is, as he hasn't been seen since the attack on the headquarters. Meanwhile, Ida and Ishtola, who snuck into the fort aboard a supply train, encounter Livia Sasjunius, the perpetrator of the Scion massacre. Despite their wishes to deal with her here and now, the goal of rescuing their friends is a bit more important. The group ends up battling their way out of the fort past a number of Imperial soldiers and Magitech armors. They end up being surrounded at a cliff's edge, where they're joined by Ida and Ishtola, although things still look dire. They're finally rescued by Sid and the Enterprise, and they begin to fly away from the castrum, although Gaius and his Ultima weapon are present, alongside La Habrea. While looking down at him, La Habrea lowers his hood, revealing a shocking identity.
Thancred! He was La Habrea? No. No, this cannot be!
We have to go now! Hang on!
Left with only questions and haunting thoughts of betrayal, the Scions decide to gather the leaders of Eorzea's city-states and urge them to join up with the Scions against the Garleans and the Ascians. The leaders are, of course, not ignorant to the threat in front of them, although the Ishgardians have remained silent on any hails for assistance. Essentially, Gaius has offered Eorzea an ultimatum. Either let the Garleans take control of Eorzea, and they'll rid them of their problem with the Primals, or resist, and be utterly wiped out. Unfortunately, the Alliance isn't completely sure which option to go for, with Connie Senna remarking that they might not even be able to defeat the Garleans and their ultimate weapon. The people of Eorzea have continued to struggle in the wake of the calamity 5 years ago, and throwing them back into a large-scale conflict against the same enemy could have dire consequences. The Alliance seems to be leaning towards accepting Garlean rule, until the Scions arrive to convince them otherwise.
As we approached, I would swear I heard talk of surrender, but I know that cannot be. It is not the Eorzean way.
Hear me, my friends. Accepting the Garleans' offer to vanquish the Primals would be folly.
Minfilia explains that the beast tribes summon their primals in times of desperation, and nothing would make them more desperate than facing annihilation. The only way to really quell the problem is to initiate peace, but that can't be done as long as the zealous Garleans are around. The Scions urge the Alliance leaders to reconsider surrendering.
Remember 5 years ago when you wagered all for the sake of the realm? Remember what you fought for, what you were willing to die for. Let the memories rekindle the fire in your heart, for Eorzea has need of it again.
Come what may, we Scions will never give up the fight. And so I bid you stand with us, and together we shall safeguard the future of the realm.
Their words stir them to action, and they each resolve to fight the Empire and banish them from Eorzea. They begin formulating an attack plan while the Scions return to the Waking Sands. Minfilia reveals that Ascians are immortal creatures with no physical form. Instead, they possess mortals by utilizing artifacts known as Crystals of Darkness. Thancred had been assigned to investigate the Ascians on his own, and he had apparently been overtaxing himself in the process, which left him vulnerable. If they can destroy the crystal that's somewhere on his person, La Habrea would be forced to relinquish control. Minfilia believes Explorer to be another warrior of light, sent by Hydaelyn to protect Eorzea, and she'll be integral in the coming conflict. Eventually, the Scions receive the details of the planned operation, the largest single counteroffensive in Eorzea's history. The plan, Operation Archon, involves a unified attack on every Imperial installation in Eorzea. There are 2 castrums near Limsa, 2 near Ul'dah, 1 near Gridania, and finally the one in Mordona that the Scions recently infiltrated. The Ultima weapon is currently being housed in Castrum Meridianum, near Ul'dah, and since it's the most secure, that will be their final target. The operation will start with Explorer leading a team of adventurers to Cape Westwind to take out one of the Empire's lieutenants, Redatine. With a leader out of the way, the castrum he'll be at will fall easily. The Maelstrom of Limsa will then move to attack one castrum nearby and blockade another, cutting off supplies and assistance to Meridianum. The Order of the Twin Adder in Gridania will surround the castrum near them, aided by the Sylphs, and then the Immortal Flames of Ul'dah will move to take down the protective field surrounding the Praetorium, an inner fortress inside of Meridianum where the Ultima weapon is housed. The Order of the Twin Adder will also blockade the railway between Meridianum and the castrum in Mordona, completely isolating the main fort. The final phase of the plan will involve Explora and her team passing into the Praetorium in order to destroy the Ultima weapon. It's a sound, if not complex, plan, in theory, but a whole lot can go wrong along the way. Fortunately, most of Eorzea seems to be united in the cause, with no less than 12 major factions involved in the operation. The plan also weighs heavily on Explora being able to take out a lieutenant, infiltrate a castrum, and destroy something literally called the Ultima weapon that can eat primals. To help prepare, Explora returns to the Paladins in Ul'dah, who bestow upon her a suit of resplendent armor, which is, coincidentally, or perhaps not so coincidentally, the same armor she saw herself wearing in her vision when she first arrived in Eorzea. Taking that as a good sign, she rides off to the Immortal Flames encampment north of Vesper Bay, where she prepares to assault the castrum and take out Redatine, who was recently sighted as arriving via airship. The entire Operation Archon kicks off here, as Explora and a team of 7 other adventurers infiltrate the fort while the flames nearby provide a distraction. The team encounters Redatine, who dismisses his guards and tells Explora that he fully believes in Gaius' quest to save this realm from their problems. Despite his imposing presence and confidence, Redatine ends up being no match for the team of elite adventurers, and he's swiftly cut down. With the first stage of the operation a success, the plan continues with the Maelstrom successfully shutting down 2 of the other castrums. Explora makes her way to Camp Bluefog near Castrum Meridianum, where the Immortal Flames are planning their part. The soldiers are a little wary of the coming battle, so Explora spends some time rallying their spirits. With that done, the time has come for Explora and her team to sneak into the fort and take down the shield protecting the Praetorium, bolstered by the Immortal Flames causing mayhem on the outside of the castrum. The interior of the castrum is crawling with Imperial patrols, and the team takes out a fair number of them as they sweep through in search of the shield generator. Cid joins up with them, informing Explorer that the shield is actually generated by 3 towers, and she'll need to disable all of them. The team heads through a waste disposal chute to get to a ceruleum facility, supplying fuel to one of the towers. Thanks to some explosives they pick up along the way, they disable the ceruleum supply, cutting off one of the towers. They continue through, aided by Sid utilizing one of the Magitech armors to blow open some gates, and make their way towards the second tower, which Sid destroys using the armor. This unfortunately blows the Magitech core inside the armor, forcing them to continue on without it. They reach the third tower, but are attacked by an Imperial assault craft, necessitating the usage of some nearby mortar cannons to take down. After shooting it out of the sky, it crashes into the third tower, completely disabling the shield surrounding the Praetorium. Their mission is complete, but one last obstacle stands in their way: Livia Sasjunius, riding her own special Magitech armor. The armor proves to be completely impregnable, but utilizing more mortar cannons, they manage to disable it, leaving Livia to face a team of 8 adventurers. It doesn't take long for her to be slain as well. With that, it's time for the final phase of Operation Archon: infiltrate the Praetorium, find the Ultima weapon, and destroy it. Sid takes the team up to the Praetorium in the Enterprise, and they begin moving through, encountering many more Imperial soldiers and armors. The group eventually encounters Gaius Van Baelzar, who attempts to convince both Sid and Explorer to join the Garleans, ensuring them that they have Eorzea's best interests in mind. Obviously, Sid and Explorer aren't biting, so Gaius leaves them to fight a large Magitech Colossus before heading deeper into the fortress. The group handily defeats it and continues onward, with Sid deciding to remain here in the monitoring room in order to help guide them. The group soon encounters an extremely well-defended door, requiring the usage of Magitech armor in order to blow open. After obtaining some and destroying it, they sweep through a large number of enemy armors before encountering Nero Tolskeva, an engineering rival of Sid's. Nero entirely resents Sid's fame, as Sid is apparently still thought of fondly in Garlemald as a prodigy of Magitech. Even though Nero believes himself to be Sid's superior, the people of Garlemald proclaim that he merely walks in Sid's footsteps. Nero plans on stopping Explorer in order to finally impress Gaius, but she didn't come all this way just to be beat up by an engineer, so the team manages to trounce him as well. He flees before being killed, however, and it seems that he provided enough of a distraction for the Ultima weapon to actually be powered up. Rather than destroying an inactive machine now, they'll have to actually fight the weapon. On the way down, however, they encounter Gaius again, who disparages Eorzeans for believing in false gods who are no different than primals.
In Eorzea, the beast tribes often summon gods to fight in their stead, though your comrades only rarely respond in kind. Which is strange, is it not? Are the 12 otherwise engaged? I was given to understand they were your protectors. If you truly believe them your guardians, why do you not repeat the trick that served you so well at Cartano and call them down?
He says that for the world of man to mean anything, man must own the world, and only a man of power can do such a thing.
To this end he hath fought ever to raise himself through conflict, to grow rich through conquest. And when the dust of battle settles, it is ever the strong who dictate the fate of the weak.
He plans on his defeat of Explorer to prove that he is ready to become Emperor of Garlemald. That's a fine thought, except that he definitely does not defeat Explorer, and he takes to climbing inside of the active Ultima weapon in order to take direct control of it. The team begins engaging the weapon, but they find that it's completely invincible to even their strongest attacks. The situation looks hopeless until Explora hears Heidelin's voice, telling her that if she would triumph, she'll have to look to the light. The power of the Echo manages to penetrate the weapon's defenses, and the team begins to do some damage to the machine, eventually causing the essences of the various primals it consumed to be released. The situation begins to look more dire for Gaius as he fails to kill Explora, at which point La Habrea shows up, informing him that Explora is protected by Heidelin. He then tells Gaius that inside of the Ultima weapon is a dormant core that not even the scholars of Alag understood, and it contains a spell without parallel, known as Ultima. Unleashing this was La Habrea's true goal all along, and he proceeds to activate the core against Gaius's wishes.
The hour is at hand. Behold but a sliver of my god's power. And from the deepest pit of the seven hells to the very pinnacle of the heavens, the world shall tremble. Unleash Ultima!
Such devastation! This was not my intention!
The devastation is indeed incredible, practically obliterating the entire Praetorium, although Heidelin manages to protect the team, although it clearly drains her. Gaius engages the team again, with Heidelin urging them to destroy the machine before it can fire off another Ultima. Fortunately, the team succeeds in finally destroying the Ultima weapon, knocking out Gaius in the process.
Heed me. The subjects of a weak ruler must needs look to a higher power for providence, and their dependence comes at a cost to the realm. The misguided elevate the frail, and the frail lead the people astray. Unless a man of power wrests control, the cycle will never be broken. You of all people must see the truth in this. You who have the strength to rule.
La Habrea shows up again and scoffs at Gaius's failure, before telling Explora that Heidelin is responsible for a growing imbalance in this world, and that she needs to be removed from existence.
If it is permitted to worsen, the very laws of existence, both etheric and physical, will be warped beyond all recognition.
The only way to accomplish this is to bring back the one true god, the Ascian's master. This is done by bringing about a chaotic confluence of untold proportions, thus the Ascian's machinations of spreading chaos. La Habrea attempts to take on the group himself, but fares no better, and in a moment of vulnerability, Explora receives another vision from Heidelin. She's told that in order to pierce the shadows, she'll need a blade of light. The 6 crystals that she gathered during her time across Eorzea form together into a sword of pure light, which she proceeds to use to break the crystal that La Habrea is using to possess Thancred's body. Hydaelyn praises Explorer for her success in stopping La Habrea, but warns that the Ascians are not gone entirely, and until they're cast out completely, the world will never know a lasting peace. Thanks to the sentient Magitech armor, Explorer manages to flee the destruction of the Praetorium with Thancred in tow. In the aftermath, the people of Eorzea celebrate their victory and their freedom from Garlean oppression. The three city-state leaders praise the Scions for their work in saving Eorzea, while warning that their problems are not over with, but together they can prosper in peace.
Old rifts threaten to divide us within our walls, while hordes of beastmen claw at our gates. And though the Black Wolf be slain, the rest of the pack remains. Yet no foe need we fear, so long as we stand as one.
So long as the Scions stand for peace.
So long as our champion stands fast. For there exists no adversity over which we may not jointly prevail.
They officially proclaim that the 7th Umbral Era, which began with the Calamity, is now over, and they're now moving forward into the 7th Astral Era, a time of peace and abundance. With this, the leaders state that their realm has been reborn. Unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and roses, as Explorer receives a sudden vision of a massive crystal similar to Hydaelyn, but one of darkness instead of light. The celebration is then interrupted by cries that another primal has emerged, forcing a quick end to the party. Elsewhere, a number of Ascians, including La Habrea, congregate to discuss their plans for the world, mentioning that they are drawing closer to something known as the Reckoning. It would seem that the primal that has emerged is none other than the same one that caused the Calamity 5 years ago, Bahamut. Explorer may have won a pivotal victory for Eorzea, but her work is far from over. She's confident, however, that with both Hydaelyn and the rest of the Scions at her side, she can protect Eorzea from any of the threats that it might face.